Good evening, my friend. Take a moment and get comfortable. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. Just a quiet space and a story that will unfold slowly. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let the day begin to drift behind you. Let the room become still. Let your breathing settle into an easy rhythm. Tonight, there is only listening, only calm, only time moving gently forward. Tonight, we're going to travel back in time. Not quickly, not all at once, but gently, step by step. As though walking down a quiet hallway of memory, as though opening an old door, as though entering a place the world once stood together to watch. We're going to visit a moment that many people remember clearly, and yet, at the same time, a moment that still feels distant, almost unreal. A moment replayed in grainy images, a moment spoken about in classrooms, a moment debated in quiet conversations, a moment that somehow feels both familiar and impossible. A moment when human beings left the Earth, crossed the vast darkness of space, and stood on the surface of the moon. A place of dust and silence, a place untouched by wind, a place that had watched Earth for ages, and now was being watched in return. It sounds simple, when said like that, almost familiar. But when you pause and really think about it, it becomes something else entirely. Because words can shrink enormous things, a sentence can make wonder sound ordinary. But reality was far larger, far stranger, far more delicate. Because the moon is not close, it is not within reach, it is silent, cold, and far beyond anything we experience in everyday life. It hangs above oceans, above cities, above sleeping towns, always present, always distant, never truly ours. And yet, in 1969, 3 men traveled there. 3 human beings carrying training, fear, discipline, and hope. 3 men who understood the danger. But alongside that story, there is another, quieter, more uncertain. A second story whispered around the edges of the first, a story built from suspicion, from unanswered feelings, from details some people could not ignore. A story that asks questions, that looks at the same event and sees something different. Where one person sees triumph, another sees theater. Where one person sees courage, another sees construction. What if it didn't happen the way we were told? What if something was hidden? What if the greatest victory of an age was also its greatest performance? What if certainty itself could be staged? Tonight, we're not here to argue. We're not here to rush to conclusions. We are here to observe, to consider, to move carefully through memory and evidence. We're simply going to explore, to observe, to listen. And as we do, there is no need to choose a side, only to follow the path of the story. And as you listen, you can let your mind drift. There's no need to hold on to every detail. Just let the story carry you. If thoughts arrive, let them pass. If questions appear, let them rest. Tonight, curiosity can be gentle. A world under tension. Before the moon, before the rockets, before the countdowns. There was a world that felt very different. A world shaped by memory of war. A world rebuilding cities and identities. A world anxious about what might come next. It was a time of quiet tension, not always visible, but always present. You could hear it in speeches. You could feel it in headlines. You could sense it in the careful language of leaders. The world was divided, not only by borders, but by beliefs, by systems, by competing ideas of how life should be organized. 2 powerful nations stood at the center of that division, the United States and the Soviet Union, each watching the other, each measuring progress, each determined not to appear weak. They were not at war in the traditional sense. There were no large battles between them, but there were warnings, threats, movements of power behind closed doors. But there was competition, constant, careful, and deeply serious. Every success mattered. Every failure was noticed. Every breakthrough carried political meaning. Each side believed in its own system, its own way of organizing society, its own vision of the future, and each wanted the world to believe the same. And each side wanted to prove that their vision was stronger. This period became known as the Cold War, a conflict often fought through pressure instead of bullets, through influence instead of invasion, through symbols instead of armies. A war not fought with armies on battlefields, but with ideas, with influence, and soon with rockets, with progress, and slowly, that competition began to extend beyond the Earth itself. It moved upward into the sky, and then beyond it, toward the sky that belonged to no nation, toward a frontier no one yet controlled. The first step into space. In 1957, something small changed everything. A satellite, simple in design, quiet in movement, but powerful in meaning. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik, and suddenly the night sky felt different, no longer empty, no longer passive. Now it contained proof of human reach. It circled the Earth again and again, passing overhead, unseen by many, but felt by all. Each orbit was a message, each pass a reminder. The race had begun. Because, for the first time in history, something made by human hands was no longer on Earth. The boundary had been crossed, the future had moved. That moment shifted something. It changed what people believed was possible. And for the United States, it created urgency. A sense that they were behind, that they needed to respond. So they did. Funding increased, research expanded, scientists were brought together, and slowly, a path into space began to form, not just to follow, but to lead. The goal that changed everything. Then in 1961, a goal was announced. Clear, simple, but incredibly ambitious. Not modest, not cautious, but grand enough to capture imagination. To land a man on the moon and bring him safely back to Earth. Both parts mattered equally. To arrive and to return. It was a statement that felt almost unreal. The moon had always been distant, untouchable, a presence in the night sky, but never within reach. Poets had admired it, sailors had navigated by it, children had pointed toward it, but no one had stood there. And now it had become a destination, a place entered onto schedules, discussed in budgets, measured in engineering plans. At the time, many doubted it could be done. Some doubted quietly, others openly. Many simply wondered how. The technology was still developing, the risks were enormous, and the unknowns were many. Heat, distance, failure, human limits, all waiting in the shadows. But the goal remained steady, unmoving, and year after year, it pulled resources and attention toward itself. The journey of Apollo 11. Then came July 1969. The mission was called Apollo 11. The name would soon become permanent in memory. 3 astronauts, each with a role to play. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. 3 names repeated in newspapers. 3 names spoken around dinner tables. 3 names carrying enormous responsibility. The launch was not rushed. Everything was precise, measured, checks repeated, systems reviewed, tiny details treated as essential. A slow build of power until the rocket lifted. Sound rolling outward, flame pressing downward, Steel rising upward, rising steadily, leaving the ground behind, and then disappearing into the sky, until those watching could only imagine the rest. The launch was not rushed. Everything was precise, measured, a slow build of power, until the rocket lifted. Sound rolling outward, flame pressing downward, steel rising upward, rising steadily, leaving the ground behind, and then disappearing into the sky, until those watching could only imagine the rest. The landing. Two of the astronauts prepared to descend. Inside the lunar module, everything slowed. Every movement mattered. Fuel was limited, the landing area uncertain. But step by step, they moved closer to the surface, lower and lower, until finally they landed. There was a pause, a moment of stillness. Then a door opened, a ladder descended, and slowly a human being stepped onto the moon. The moment the world watched. Back on Earth, millions were watching. The images were not perfect. They were grainy, soft, but they carried meaning. People leaned closer to their screens, watching movements that felt almost unreal. Slow steps, light movements, footprints pressed into dust that had never been touched before. A flag placed carefully into the ground. Experiments carried out in silence. For many, it was a moment of unity, a shared experience, something that felt larger than any one country. But even then, some people felt uncertainty. Small details stood out. Questions began quietly. Why did the flag appear to move? Why were there no stars visible? Why did the shadows look unusual? At first, these were simple observations, but over time, they became something more. Theories began to form, ideas that suggested the landing might not have happened as it seemed, that perhaps it had been staged, created, presented to the world as real. These ideas spread slowly through conversation, through media, and eventually across the world. Explanations and evidence. At the same time, others looked more closely. They studied the images, the conditions, the science. They offered explanations. The flag moved, not because of wind, but because of motion. The stars were not visible because of camera settings. The shadows were shaped by the terrain. Beyond that, there was physical evidence. Objects placed on the moon, reflectors still used today, samples brought back, studied by scientists, independent tracking, recorded at the time, all pointing toward the same conclusion. And yet, even with explanations, not everyone was convinced. A story that lives in two ways. And so, the moon landing became something unique, a single event, seen in two different ways. For some, a remarkable achievement. For others, an unanswered question. And perhaps that is part of what keeps the story alive, because it exists, not just in history, but in perception, in belief, in the way each person chooses to understand it. And that understanding is often shaped quietly by what a person has seen before, by what they have learned to trust, by how they feel when they look at history. Some people seek certainty. Others are drawn to mystery. Some feel comfort in official answers. Others feel compelled to keep questioning. And often, the same person can feel all of these things at once. That may be why the moon landing continues to live in conversation. Because it is not only a story about the past, it is a story about how human beings think, how we believe, how we doubt, how we search for meaning. Many historical moments become dates in books. This one became something else, an image, a symbol, a puzzle to some, a triumph to others. And so, it remains alive, returning again and again through documentaries, discussions, classrooms, and late-night thoughts. Some stories end when the event is over. This story did not, because whenever human beings look up at the moon, the question can quietly return. What truly happened there? And what does that answer mean to us now? Looking back now, it is easier to forget how extraordinary it all must have felt. At the time, nothing was guaranteed. No one could skip ahead to the outcome. No one could turn the page and see the ending. There was only uncertainty, only preparation, only courage meeting risk. Whether one sees the event as achievement or mystery, it belonged to a world that was willing to attempt something enormous. A world still rough at the edges, still divided, still tense, yet still capable of lifting its eyes upward. There is something meaningful in that alone. The desire to reach farther, to test limits, to imagine more than the present moment allows. Even doubt, in its own way, reveals something human. The wish to understand deeply, the refusal to accept appearances too quickly, and the instinct to ask one more question. So, perhaps both wonder and skepticism tell us something true about ourselves. One pushes us forward, the other asks us to look carefully, and together, they shape the way history is remembered. Now, the story slows, the noise fades, the movement quiets, and what remains is stillness. You don't need to decide anything tonight. Just let the thoughts drift away and rest. Good night, my friend. Now, the story can become quiet. The engines are silent, the broadcasts have faded, the screens have gone dark, the dust remains where it was left, the shadows remain where they once fell, and the moon continues its slow path above the sleeping earth. You do not need to decide anything tonight. You do not need final answers before rest can come. Some questions belong to the day. Some thoughts can wait until morning. For now, there is only breath, only stillness, only the gentle weight of the night around you. Let your shoulders soften. Let the jaw unclench. Let the mind loosen its grip on the world. If thoughts return, let them pass. If images return, let them blur. If questions return, let them sit quietly at a distance. Above, rooftops, oceans, fields and cities, the moon shines the same as it always has, calm, patient, untroubled by human arguments. And here below, you may be calm too. You may be still. You may rest. Breathe slowly, breathe deeply. Let sleep approach in its own time. Good night once more, my friend. Sleep peacefully, and let the night carry you gently onward, onward into quieter thoughts, onward into softer breathing, onward into the calm place where the day can no longer reach you. Let every unfinished thing rest for now. Let every worry loosen. Let every question become light enough to drift away. You do not need to solve tomorrow tonight. You do not need to revisit yesterday tonight. You only need this moment, this breath, this stillness. Feel the body growing heavier. Feel the mind growing quieter. Feel the room settling around you. Outside, the world moves at its own pace. But here, nothing needs to move at all. The night is patient. It does not rush you. It does not ask for anything. It simply waits beside you. If thoughts return, let them pass like distant footsteps. If sounds appear, Let them fade into the background. If sleep feels far away, trust that it is already on its way, above the rooftops and beyond the clouds. The moon continues its silent path, steady, calm, certain in its movement. And you too may be calm now. You too may be still. You too may rest without needing every answer. Breathe in gently and breathe out slowly, again and once more. With each breath, the day moves farther behind you. With each breath, the quiet moves closer. With each breath, sleep opens its door a little wider. So drift now, soften now, let go now. And when dreams arrive, may they be gentle, may they be light, may they meet you kindly. Good night, my friend. Rest deeply and let the night carry you wherever peace is found.